In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.
Hey y'all, welcome to the Daily Memphian's Tigers Basketball Podcast. I'm Parth, the Tigers basketball beat writer here at the Daily Memphian, and I'm joined by John Fanta of Fox Sports. Oh wait, no, that's John Martin of the Daily Memphian. I guess I might have booked the wrong guest. John, you got to get out of here, bro.
Sorry, man. I'm just letting everybody down this week. Yeah.
No, but that's a funny story. Heard y'all talking about it on the radio this morning. Do you mind kind of telling our listeners what happened there and why you were mistaken for the great John Fanta?
Yeah.
Not that you're not great.
Yeah, no, I fall short. There's no question about it. So I get a text on Monday morning from a guy that I don't recognize, and he's like, "Hey, John," that's my name. He says, "Hey, John, would you like to come on, our show on this network, on this sports betting network, and would you like to, talk, college basketball?" I said, "Well, yeah. I mean, I talk about college basketball. I work for Field of 68. I write about Memphis. Like, I bet on college basketball. This seems like right up my alley."
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I'm a logical guest to have on, right? So I say, "Yeah. Well, what time you guys want me?" They say, "Let's do this time." All right, perfect. Talk to you then. Text them, Tuesday morning. I'm like, "Hey, you guys calling me?" "Yep, call you in 5. Cool. Call me in 5 minutes." We do a little small talk. They ask me about a couple of games before we go on. Again, everything's cool. And then they introduced me as Fox Sports broadcaster John Fanta. And that was like the funniest. I mean, it was really funny because there was no way for them to have known that I wasn't John Fanta.
I mean, as you mentioned on the radio, and you showed a lot of grace, but there were several ways they may have come to that conclusion that you were not indeed John Fanta, the 901 area code being one of them on your phone.
I mean, that's definitely
your phone
true.
number.
And I didn't realize that they had I did realize that, like, normally when you go on shows like that, you'll get tagged in the show lineup. And I didn't this morning. And, they tagged Fanta. And maybe, I don't follow them. So, I would have been able to pick up on that and say, "Hey, yo, just so that you guys know, you booked me and not Fanta."
Right.
But, what was interesting is I still wound up doing the segment.
That is crazy.
They were like, they go, "Well, why don't we just talk about college basketball?" I'm like, "What the hell?"
You're a good dude, man.
I am a good dude. And I'll say this.
Because a lot of people would have
I wanted to. I wanted to say, listen, you guys don't even know who I am.
Yeah.
You don't. But what I would say is that, I've been there. I've been there as a producer in this business. I booked the wrong guy before. I did that when I was with Jeff as his producer. And obviously it's embarrassing, but I think we would all do a little better in the world if we showed, some empathy for a fellow man, some grace for fellow man, because people make mistakes. People fall short. It's not the end of the world. It's not like this is like somebody hit the nuclear button, right? Nobody fumbled the nuclear codes here. So
no.
It's an honest mistake. My name is John. His name is John. We both work at Field of 68. Could they have done a little bit more diligence? Sure.
A little bit more digging would have.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course. Yes. But again, because I made that mistake, I definitely have a heart. And I would like to believe that if I made a similar mistake, which I did make, that somebody would show me that same grace. So, yeah, man, it was quite the morning though. It was a good time, and we're going to wind up having John Fanta on the radio show, which will
awesome.
be
a nice plug. Here
yeah, I mean, can you imagine John Fanta and John Fanta in the same place?
It's like the Spider-Man meme on Twitter.
Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. So yeah, no, it was a fun
that cracked me up, man. I was driving, listening to y'all, and
did you think I handled it pretty well?
You're a pro's pro, man. Yeah, you handled it great. But it had me laughing out loud. The story did not on their end.
If
obviously.
You go back and listen to it, at the end of it, when they're like, "Why don't you stay on?" and you can kind of hear in my voice, I'm like, "Yeah, all right, that's fine. Let's do it." Like it was begrudging. I'm not gonna sit here and act like I was excited to do it, but I was already there, so why not?
All right, so we've got a lot of Tigers basketball to get to, as we always do on this podcast, on this show. But just wanted to start off with that story that cracked me up as I was driving.
I'm glad to be a source
driving
of
around Memphis this morning. Yeah, man, you all every day, trust me, every day.
Yeah.
But before we get into it all, first, don't forget to subscribe to all of our content, all of our stories, podcasts, etc. Here at thedailymemphian.com, and you can find our podcast at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you may get your podcasts from. You can also listen to these episodes and read all of our Tigers coverage, like I said, at dailymemphian.com. Now let's jump right in. John, the empathy lesson's a good one. And I think, myself included, I'm pointing inward also.
There we go. I like it.
People should have some sense of empathy for the Tigers with their close shaves against these, let's be real, bad teams.
Yep.
Because the body of work is still the body of work.
Yeah.
And they're still winning. And now they've won 20 of their first 25 games for the first time since the 2012-2013 season. That's amazing.
It is an amazing year, especially considering what we thought it could be.
Right.
I mean, you were bullish about them, but I don't think you would have even had them quite doing this.
Not this, no.
Yeah, and I think it's the latest they've been ranked this high in a season since that last year they went to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I think even further, it's a 16-year drought, if you want to call it that.
Right.
First time in 16 years that they're ranked in the top 15 this late in a basketball season.
So, I mean, that's special. It's a special season. But it is marred a bit by this conference season. I mean, we come in here every week
and say the same things, right?
Conversation.
Yeah.
We have the same exact discussion. Like, Memphis wins another close one. Could have been bigger, and they give it away at the end. Like,
I write the same things. Game stories, like it's hard not to, because the same things are happening again and again and again.
Now,
it's like Groundhog Day.
Thankfully, they're wins.
Right.
I mean,
no doubt.
If those were flipped, it would be a problem. But it feels like that movie, like with Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore, was it 51st Dates, where every day you wake up and it's the same day over and over and over again. That's kind of where we're at with Memphis. It's the same day over and over again. And it's not, this is supposed to be an exciting year, a triumphant run, like we're having, but it's like all anybody can do is just bide their time until the tournament starts, like get us to Selection Sunday and get us through this crap. And, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong on that, but like just obviously as somebody that covers them,
right,
as somebody that covers the sport, I am not enjoying this for Memphis because, you just feel like you come away from every game, unsatisfied, right? Even in their wins. But like the problem is you're
no
just
doubt
expected to do it. And when you don't do it by a certain margin
or in a certain fashion or a certain way,
you just come away like disappointed, and it's a backwards way to live, but it's the function of this conference. And it's why I hope, that the administration sees this. They see those ticket counters and they understand that, listen, and you can't say it's about the quality of the team that Memphis is. You can't say, well, they got to be better. Memphis is number 14.
They've done their part this season. Yeah.
And you're still not getting the butts in the seats because nobody wants to see American Conference basketball. That's the problem. So you got to get creative with it. You got to fix it. And it ain't going to be by sitting around and waiting for this league to improve itself.
No doubt. And something else that illustrates that is, this Sunday when they'll play Wichita State, they'll be on ESPN, not ESPN2, not
Correct.
ESPNU. It'll only be the fourth time this season they'll be on the worldwide leader of
They're
sports,
usually on
ESPN.
ESPN2.
Exactly.
Which,
for a team that's lived in the top 20 pretty much since January, that's
and
nuts.
it's always on Sunday too. That's the other thing. You're not getting Thursday night, Friday nights, or Saturday nights, whatever. You're getting Sunday afternoon.
Before you were competing with football, this past Sunday, competed with the Super Bowl, and then now you're competing with church and whatever else folks do on Sundays. So, so it's tough. It's tough.
I think we do tend to overestimate the value of that. It's just not hard to find things in 2025. The Big East pays their basketball programs about $7 million a year, which is about what Memphis gets as a full member of the American. Right?
That's nuts to think about when you put it in that perspective.
Yeah. So, again, it's time to get creative over there. It's time to start thinking about ways out.
No doubt. And I want to get to that because Rick Pitino obviously is back he's always in the headlines as Rick Pitino.
Yep.
He says crazy stuff all the time,
Yep.
but he's back in the headlines associated with Memphis, and we'll get to that a little bit later in the show. But something else that illustrates what we're seeing and puts it into numbers, right? Quantifies it, is Evan Miyakawa, who's a I guess, a data scientist who specializes in college basketball analytics and all that kind of jazz, has a stat called opponent adjust, which shows you which teams play up and down to their competition the most. I wrote about it in my Tigers Insider, which published this morning, and you've mentioned it in a column. Memphis is second in the country in opponent adjust, according to Evan Miyakawa on evanmiya.com, which basically means out of the 364 teams in Division I college basketball, Memphis is second in playing up to the best teams on its schedule and playing down to the worst. And that's tough when you've got so many bad teams on your schedule. And we've seen that happen again and again. So something I was curious about, and shout out to Evan, him and I kind of shot messages back and forth about this. And obviously it's his data that's giving me this idea.
Yeah,
but
he's good at pimping his stuff.
He's good, man.
He's good at
He's real good. No, man. But he does fantastic
good
work.
Marketer, yeah.
He does fantastic work. Great marketer as well, yes, no doubt. So I was curious, man, like the past 2 seasons, right? I know it's a small sample size, but the teams that were in the top 10 in opponent adjust, how did they do? Did they not make the tournament? I'm not saying Memphis is obviously a damn near lock.
Feels like it, yeah.
To go to the tournament, but did they flame out early? What happened, right? And you look at the teams this year that are in the top 10, and Memphis is one of them. Out of the 10 that were there as of last night's rankings, Memphis was 4th last night. Now it's 2nd because those rankings update every day. Out of those 10, you've got 5 tournament teams, projected tournament teams, according to CBS Sports' latest bracketology, right? That'd be Wisconsin, who's supposed to be a 3 seed according to CBS, according to Jerry Palm. That's good company. You've got New Mexico, projected 9 seed. You've got Wake Forest, a 10, pegged as a 10. And you've got San Diego State, a 12 in the first 4. So it kind of ranges, but Wisconsin is certainly not a bad company to be in. That's a team that people think can make a run this year that has the talent to do so. And Memphis is as well as a 4 seed in Palm's latest bracketology. But if you go back, like I said, last year and the year before that, and you take those 30 teams, you take the 10 teams this year who are in the top 10 and the 10 who were in the top 10 to finish the past 2 seasons, you've got 30 teams. Only 12 made the tournament, but several made deep runs. In fact, one of the teams on this list is UConn of last year, who finished number 3 in an opponent adjust. Obviously, that impacts you much less when you're playing in the Big East because you've got a lot of, even your bad Big East teams, are much better than the AAC teams in this league, right? Right. But, UConn is one of those teams that got up and down, depending on the night, and they cut nets for the 2nd year in a row, right? Yep. NC State barely got in the tournament, but once they got in, what did they do? They made a Final Four. Yep. Made a Final Four run. Clemson is in that list. Was a 6 seed, but went to the Sweet 16 and lost to Bama, who went to the Final Four. Bama went to the Final Four, obviously. Yep. So the point being that a lot of these teams have not made the tournament, obviously, but the ones that have are using just that very thing, whether it's an emotional thing, whether it's a psychological thing, whatever, when they get up for these brand name opponents to their advantage in the tournament. Because after you get past the first round, it's all brand names, right?
Oh, sure. It may even be the first round, depending on who you get. I mean, there's a world where you get a big brand in the first round. What would scare me about Memphis is if they get like a UC Irvine, which is they're losing that game.
And that's exactly what Evan said. He didn't mention UC Irvine
but it's that
team.
Type of opponent.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so the idea is like first round we can say there's a reasonable chance you get a UC Irvine or that type of opponent because Memphis is such a high seed, right? It'll be a 4, 3, 5, whatever it may be. So they'll play a team like UC Irvine, maybe not them in particular. If you can get past that one, though,
you got a chance.
Then you got a chance.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the part of Memphis that's frustrating because it's almost like people have forgotten the non-conference by now, right? They've just kind of. I mean,
it kind of gets buried. We've got so many games that have happened since then. That was November. It feels like ages ago.
Yeah, I mean, even the Ole Miss game, that was 2 months ago.
Yeah, and that was December, obviously.
I mean, people don't remember what happened this morning.
Right, no doubt. And certainly not AP voters.
Yeah, so I mean,
except for myself, obviously.
You're on top of everything. But yeah, I mean, it's tough to be Memphis, just because like you get criticized because you play these stupid, wacky AAC games, and it's almost like what you did in the non-conference is irrelevant now because it's not what you've done the most. People get focused on the recency, right? So it's just my jihad, man. It's my jihad. Every single week I come in here, or talk about it on the show.
Yep.
It's just get me out of this league, right? Get Memphis out of this league.
Banging on the door, banging, hoping somebody hears you, right?
Well, they heard me. I mean,
they did hear you.
Scott
That's
heard
true.
me. He just said passion doesn't pay the bills. Well, does the American really? I mean, does the American really pay the bills? I mean, you're just kind of surviving. You're not really thriving.
That's probably the perfect way to put it.
They made $80 last year as an athletic
That's
department.
nuts, yeah.
You know, like at some point.
Shout out to Frank Bonner for
great
reporting on that
reporting.
story. Yes.
But that's not livable, right? So you gotta take a chance on something to me, or else you're just gonna be. What are we gonna do? Make $80 for the rest of our lives here? You want to climb up,
Yeah.
and you're not gonna do that by kind of languishing in this league. So, look, Memphis is gonna probably win it. That's great.
At this point, you're getting separation,
But
right?
what everybody said when I was complaining about the Pac-12 and not going, they said, well, win your league first. Okay, Memphis is going to win the league. Now what?
Now what? And I guess we'll find out.
Now what? You're still stuck in this stuff. It's a joke league whether Memphis wins it or not. I always tell people this. There's not it's not like you just beat this video game like I do with my kids.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you win the league and like this, you get this big, celebration and big finish, and man, you get this sense of achievement and wondering, is there a secret ending that I'm gonna? No,
you don't suddenly level up to the Big 12 or the Big East or the ACC.
Just,
you're stuck.
That's it.
On this level, beat it again.
It's a joke league.
And again.
That's right. It's a joke league, and nobody. Let me make this abundantly clear. Nobody cares if you win it. Nobody cares.
On a national level, nobody cares, and certainly maybe even in the city of Memphis, people don't care.
Bro, it will not matter. Even though Memphis was picked not even to win it, even though they were picked second, nobody nationally is going to say, man, awesome by Memphis to win the AAC, right?
Crickets, yeah.
Because they will just say, well, Memphis should have never been picked second to begin with. Of course it should have been picked to win the league,
Yeah, look at the talent. Look at the transfer portal haul
so
that he got. Yeah.
Bro, there ain't a win to be had. Even if you win the thing, if you run away with the thing, which they're in the process of doing, there's not a single victory to be had in this league. I mean, you really got to do your coaching staff and your program a solid, man. You really got to figure this out.
No, and I'm sure it's not easy, but it's definitely something that needs to be re-explored.
Yeah, I mean, I would
hope the Pac-12's calling Ed's line again.
I would entertain a basketball-only move to the Pac-12. Like, you don't have to take football with you. Yeah. I mean, I know that gets complicated, but you can leave the football team in the American. I mean,
there's ways to do this, right?
But you have to.
It's been done before where it's
right. Like, you cannot let your basketball program be in the situation it is just to save football. Like, you got to make choices.
Well, it's not just about saving football. It's about, according to Dr. Scott, saving student-athlete welfare and not having to have the softball team fly to freaking Oregon or whatever,
Fine. Keep them where they're at.
Yeah.
Get the basketball program into a credible league.
No.
This is ridiculous.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. And I think attendance and just overall interest, man, like, this is the 14th ranked team in the country. Why is FedEx Forum not full? Why is it not buzzing every single night? I don't care if it's Tulsa
or... Not only is it not full, bro, it's not even half full.
No, it's not.
They had to close the terrace level.
Last game, yes, they curtained off the terrace level, which is insane, man.
Like, now, what I will say, and I think this is fair to point out, when Cal was here and they had the same type of schedule, it was 18,000 full, right? It was packed. But key difference here, two things, honestly, I would say. One is Grizzlies sucked. They were not a thing. Right. They were still new. People weren't like all the way in yet.
Right. They had just gotten here in 2001?
Yeah, I mean, so
they were in the first 5-6 years
it took
of their...
them a long time.
Yeah.
They didn't even win a playoff game until like 2011.
That's right.
So there just wasn't that shift, right? Secondly, Memphis was on this historic run. They were on this run where it was like Elite Eight, 30 wins, crazy recruiting classes, top of the sport, right? So Memphis hasn't had those things. I always have to remind people, like, when they talk about attendance at Memphis, they haven't made a Sweet 16 since 2009. Point me to a program out there
that's still alive and kicking and has this passionate fan base that Memphis has. You can't name one.
You can't name a place that has a bunch of people there, like 15,000 strong at games, that hasn't made a Sweet 16 since 2009. That program does not exist. I'm just telling you, it doesn't. So it's not about Memphis fans. Like, people always trying to make this conversation about Memphis fans and interest and things like that. Bro, Memphis hasn't given them anything to be interested in since 2009.
It's kind of teased, right? Like throughout the Penny Hardaway era. You look at last year's top 10, and you look at 2 years ago when they surged at the end of that 22-23 season. But consistently from point A to point B of a season, it hasn't been done until this year.
No. And again, the Josh era, like, recruiting wins are not going to get people in the building, right? Like, people are
they
just
did initially, right? Even in the Penny era, like you saw
at the beginning,
right?
At the very beginning, but then you don't do anything with those players, and so people stop giving you the benefit of the doubt, and that's what's really happened, right? That's what's happened with Memphis basketball. These seats not being filled is not. It's not a result of we don't care about the season, right? We don't care that. What it really is that people were out on the Penny era. People did not believe coming into this year that they were going to do anything.
People jumped off the bandwagon, so to speak. Yeah.
And so people were on it when he got the job because they were all behind him and everything. Mm-hmm. And now we're in year 7, right? And going into it, I mean, unbelievable collapse a year ago, right? Fires his entire staff. On paper, doesn't really have that great a recruiting class. It's turned out to be incredible. Far beyond.
He prioritized fit over talent, which is what you'd want, right? Like you saw the
P.J.
talent.
Haggerty was a freshman at Tulsa.
Last year, not work out.
He defied all expectations.
Right.
But nobody had this kind of
Nobody predicted this, even the most optimistic person.
So what I feel confident in saying is that, yes, attendance is a lagging indicator. If Memphis goes on a Sweet 16 run this year, they will have fuller buildings next season.
You would hope so.
If they don't next year, if they come up a Sweet 16,
then you got to get out of this league. I mean, you got to do that anyway, but that's even more reason to get out of this league.
Yeah, but I think if they do that, then they will have, they'll sell more season tickets.
I've got a trivia question for you.
Okay.
And you'll see where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
So we talked about that opponent adjust stat.
Yep.
In Penny Hardaway's 7 years, right? So this is year 7. How many times in the past 6 have his teams finished in the top 15 of opponent adjust? That would mean that they're among the 15 teams who are up and down the most, right, in college basketball.
I would say, not including this year?
Not including
previous
this year.
6? I would say twice.
3 times.
I could name 2 of the years.
Can you? Go ahead.
21, 22.
That's correct. They were 9th, finished 9th that year.
22, 23.
7th. That's the Kendrick Davis, DeAndre Williams year, yes.
And then the other year, I guess, would have been 19, 20?
No, it's 2020, 2021. So it happened 3 years in a row.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah. So that was that was Boogie and Lester's sophomore season.
Correct. So it was year 3, 4, and 5 of the Penny era.
Yep.
Last year, they were trending that way, obviously, because they had some big wins, but then those teams turned out to flop. The ones they beat, that would be Arkansas, Michigan, whatever. The list goes on. And then they just played poorly consistently. When it came to conference play, so they finished 66th in opponent adjust last year. But it's kind of...
They're just bad all around last year. That's what that means. You're losing the good teams and bad teams. You're losing everybody.
It got to that point where it was just bad. Yeah, no doubt. But the thing is, that 22-23 team, which finished 7th, right, in opponent adjust, it had that almost inevitable surge, right, like towards the end of the year. They beat freaking Tulane by 40 in the conference tournament, in the AAC tournament in Fort Worth. They blasted them by 40. They beat Houston, who finished 2nd in Ken Palm, by 10 in that title game. Obviously, Marcus Sasser did not play,
right?
But they still got that job done. They had that surge to where people were predicting that team to be a dark horse Final Four contender. That team finished 20th in Ken Palm, I believe, top 25 in the net. Will this team have a similar surge? Is that coming, or is it just kind of too late to be expecting that on February 11th?
Yeah, I think this is just who they are.
You think so?
Yeah.
And will that matter? That's the second part of the question.
No,
right?
I don't think it will because if you're winning, I don't think, people keep saying Ken Palm is like taken into consideration, but if Memphis runs the table, okay?
Right.
If they win every game the rest of the way, and I'm including the conference tournament as well, if they win every game the rest of the way, I don't care what their Ken Palm metrics are.
They'll be a 4.
They'll 100% be a 4, maybe better.
3 will be tough, won't it?
It'll be tough.
You look at the top 12 teams in college
I'm gonna
basketball.
Rule it out, though.
Yeah.
Because you'll be 30-4 with wins over UConn, Michigan State, Ole Miss, San Francisco.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll have big wins, man. San Francisco just beat St. Mary's the other day. Missouri. I leave out Missouri.
Yeah.
You'll have again, the problem is that in December, that resume was like, damn, I got wins over this, and this.
And the metrics were better.
And the metrics were better.
They were not in the 40s.
five good wins over the course of 34
right.
shrinks in comparison to 5 good wins over the course of 14 games.
Bingo.
See what I mean?
Exactly.
So again, I mean, that's because it's like, damn, like where's the rest of it? Kind of like
there was a time where Memphis, and this was not an opinion, this was just objective truth. Memphis had the best resume in college basketball this season at one point in time.
Yeah.
That obviously is not true anymore.
Right.
A lot of teams have 5 quad 1 wins. A lot of teams have 5 quad 2 wins.
Yeah.
So that's the challenge there. It's like there's not opportunities.
You have no chance.
And the only chance, so to speak, you have to improve your resume sheet, team sheet, whatever, is to blast these bad teams. They just haven't done it.
I mean, dude, nobody's doing that. Nobody's blasting teams. Gonzaga's not blasting teams.
Gonzaga's playing slightly better teams, though. Slightly.
They've also lost 3 times in their league.
They have.
I mean, let's just look up Gonzaga.
Gonzaga. I'm curious.
Let's look at. I mean, they're 18-7, right? Which is obviously already a worse record than
Down year.
Yeah, but I mean, they're still 18th at Ken Palm.
They're 13th in Ken Palm?
13th at Ken Palm.
That's crazy.
Look, they've lost.
Okay, that's surprising. Yeah,
they've lost to St. Mary's. Okay, they lost to Santa Clara. They lost to Oregon State. You know, I mean.
Dude, and their best win is still that Baylor win from the season opener.
Look, they beat
Isn't that crazy?
They beat Pepperdine by 7. They beat San Diego by 13. They beat the hell out of Portland and Loyola Marymount. But I mean, we're talking about
they've got one win against a top 30 Ken Palm team.
That's what I'm saying. So you tell me how that one makes sense. I mean,
and they're 13th.
It just doesn't make sense to me.
No, it doesn't.
They don't have the wins like Memphis has, right? Like, you know, they just don't. Now, they did beat Long Beach State by 43. Like, they beat Portland by 40. Like, but if Memphis played Portland, bro, they would win by 40. I mean,
or Long Beach State, for that matter. You would hope so.
I think they would. But, you know, again, that's just, you know, by and large, nobody is doing that in college basketball, right? Like, again, let's look at St. Mary's. St. Mary's is in a similar situation. Like, they're better than Gonzaga.
But this league is so bad. That's the thing, right? Nobody's doing that in college basketball. They don't play in the American Athletic Conference.
Yeah, but it's not.
It's the 10th best conference
you're right,
last time I checked.
But the WCC
is not much better. No,
exactly.
It's not drastically better.
So, look, what'd they do? They beat Santa Clara by 13. They beat Washington State by 5, you know. I mean, yes, they do lean on some of these teams. Maybe St. Mary's was a bad example.
Yeah, they're having a hell of a year.
I mean, they beat Pepperdine by 30. They beat Portland
They beat Gonzaga, didn't they? Yeah,
they beat Gonzaga. Yeah. So, I mean, listen, they are creating a little bit more margin than Memphis is with their league. I mean, in fairness. But again, it's like, you know, though that league, the bottom of that league is worse than the Americans' bottom of the league, you know.
And I think the point we're trying to make in saying all this is this. It's twofold, right? One is that the up and down nature, Jekyll and Hyde nature of Memphis basketball this season is unique, kind of, but it's not all that unique because we've seen teams like UConn, Miami 2 years ago, Clemson and NC State last year, Northwestern, be successful in the postseason with having that same kind of problem, if you will. You want to call it a problem, whatever. But what we haven't seen, I don't think, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, is a team sitting in the 40s in not every single metric, but a lot of them. Ken Palm, the net, Bar Torvik, they're in the 50s, I believe. A team that low in those rankings be in contention for a top 4 seed. That's what we haven't seen.
Yeah, no, it would be the first.
Yeah.
But I would say, why not this team?
That seems like to be the slogan, right?
Yeah,
like the motto.
Why not Memphis?
Put it on a t-shirt. Hashtag why not
there
Memphis.
There we go. We got it.
Why not Memphis? One thing I want to get to before we get out of here is the Rick Pitino comments. He was on a radio show. I forgot which one, but Mike Krzyzewski, former Duke basketball coach, legend, was on there with him. They were discussing expansion of the Big East.
Yep.
I think the Big East has is it 11 or 13 teams?
I think it's 11, yeah.
11 teams. And he was saying as good as the league has been in recent years, this year is obviously a down year, but as good as the league has been, 11 is not, in his mind, a sustainable number.
Right.
And he talked about either merging with another league, that'd be the ACC or something of that nature.
Yeah. I mean,
or doing that plus adding schools in non-Power 5 conferences. And one team that Pitino's mentioned historically, dating back to, I think, 2011, is Memphis. He's been an advocate for Memphis getting in a power conference. Man, what does that mean when someone like one of the greatest coaches of all time, a Mount Rushmore, I think, figure in college basketball, is advocating for the Memphis Tigers?
I think it means a lot. I think it shows you the cultural significance of a Memphis, the historical significance of a Memphis. Rick Pitino was obviously at Louisville, like you mentioned, when Memphis and Louisville were still playing those series. So he saw it up close and personal. He knows the kind of athletes Memphis can get. He respects that. And look, the Big East right now is a 4-bid league. They were a 3-bid league last year. It's not good enough for them.
For them, no, absolutely not.
They expect to be, 7, 8, 9-bid league, right?
And he said that. Almost verbatim, yeah.
I mean,
on the radio.
Butler's disappointing, Providence disappointing, Xavier, Georgetown, Seton Hall, DePaul. Like, you got to shore up the middle of that league, And I think bringing in a Memphis, that can help
maybe
you.
A Dayton, perhaps.
Sure,
I'm just naming teams here, whatever. Yeah.
Because whatever money you would have to split with the television revenue, you would make up with tournament units.
Correct.
Which is last year was $2 million a win. So you start to do the math there. It's like, yeah, I might lose a little bit on the front end, but on the back end, I can make it back, and I have more opportunities in my league potentially to improve my seeding or whatever the case may be.
Dude, how fun would that be? Like, we saw it we've seen it before, obviously, but we saw it again in Hawaii, the UConn Memphis.
It would be like
Penny,
that.
Dan Hurley. Penny said they're friends to some extent.
Yeah, I mean, twice a week.
Man, that was just excellent theater.
And that's what this fan base needs. So I'm trying not to get my hopes up about it. I do know, though, that there are people.
It's just a comment, right? It's not.
But I think there are people that are legitimately pushing for it, though.
Really?
I think it's okay. Yeah, I mean, I think Rick is the guy. I think he's the one he's not just saying it; he wants to do it, and I think he's really trying to use his influence in that league to get the commissioner to be open to it. So, look, he was successful once before. I'm not going to put it past him to be successful again.
That's right. He did. He pulled it off in 2011.
And Memphis, it's good timing.
Memphis was in the Big East. That's crazy.
They were. It was, dude. They had
like a fever dream.
They had the billboard in Times Square.
Something that is not real.
Yeah,
it's hard to imagine.
It is, and Memphis it's great timing because they're 20-4. They're 14th in the country. They look like they would be a great addition to the league.
Yeah.
So let's hope that Memphis keeps winning, and let's hope that Rick Pitino. And his words don't fall on deaf ears.
No doubt. That's all the time we've got today. John, thanks for joining us. John Martin, that is not Fanta, Martin. Right. Thanks everybody for listening. You can check out all of our work at dailymemphian.com, and please like, subscribe, review this podcast if you can. We'd appreciate it. And we will catch y'all soon.